Unlock the full potential with your business with Leadershipity. Our proven strategies have fueled growth for countless organizations. Ready to elevate your leadership and scale your success? Book your free 15-minute consultation now. Click the link in the show notes below and let's make your business soar.
Welcome to NIL for You. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform for athletes to network and connect with their fellow athletes and other alumni. We're so excited each week to have this show. We talk about all kinds of stories going on in NIL, but it's more about the education and just, things that are going on, how we can help people out. And as always, I'm so excited to have my co-host, Trent Clark, who is just, we'll talk about it later. Always Trent's tips are my favorite part of the show. How you doing today, Trent?
Awesome as usual. I'm glad to be here with everybody. Thrilled to join you. I am the CEO of AIM for NIL and Leadershipity. Do a lot of coaching for a lot of organizations and teach up a lot of people on how this NIL thing is going to go. So super pumped up today to talk with our good friend Eric Mader from Dallas. And man, he's got a unique perspective, great software coming in on the backside of these collectives, working directly with the students. Eric, great to have you, buddy.
I appreciate the time, guys. It's great to meet both of you, and very excited about NIL and college athletics. So I'm happy to have the conversation.
Yeah, you're into about all of it, man. Like you're in from like A to Z, brother. So it's an interesting world because it's moving fast, right? And there's challenges inside the organization, and so what I find is the best entrepreneurs are leaning into where the pain is, right? And they're trying to solve that pain quickly, do it relatively pain-free, right? Yep. And hit them up and find out where these sore spots. I felt like at the beginning of NIL, there's a lot of people who jumped in the game who anticipated what the pain may be, and I don't think that was the pain at all. And so I think it's had to do this pivot shift over the last 24 months that had almost like reinvented itself. Have you seen that, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to look back at just the history of student athletes getting money in general is probably even an easier way to track the whole process and the change, because in the past, I mean, I played in the late 90s or in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was you heard about these things. It didn't happen to me, but it was a $100 handshake coming off the field, or on signing day, it was that all of a sudden there's a shoebox full of $25,000 and with a little logo on it, and everything was below the board, and all of a sudden these guys are driving cars around the in the parking lot. You're like, how the hell do they get those aspect of it? And now it's raised all of that to the positive side and out into the light of day. And it has, forced these guys that are making these, putting these dollars up now to say, hey, I really want more of a return on my investment, as opposed to just being able to sit around the country club and say, hey, I got those 3 kids to come to school here, and talking to your buddies, as opposed to, all right, I've made a real investment in a student athlete or a program, and now it's turned around to being, something a little bit more positive, where the student athletes can ultimately take advantage of it. But obviously, there's discrepancies between sports and between the student athletes themselves, and it really is the wild west in terms of what people are able to do and able to accomplish, and I think that's some of the biggest issues too. And I'm on the college collective side, and it's such a different entity in terms of what the colleges themselves are trying to do and accomplish, because in some ways they're competing head to head against each other. The booster club is going for the same dollars that the NIL collectives are, and the collectives themselves are understaffed and sometimes lacking a little bit of knowledge in certain areas. So they need help to figure out how can I. They're going after the big donors and that get that $500,000, $1 million donation, so that they can have a war chest, go to the coaches and say, all right, this guy wants 50,000. Right, we can work with them to make that happen, as opposed to they don't have the tools and the capacity to reach out to all the alumni, because number one, most of the booster clubs aren't sharing that information with them, so they don't have a database of email stuff. So my side of it is to try to make that easier for the NIL collectives to reach out to the alumni, make the whole transaction process easier, and then hopefully if I help them find dollars better, because you talk about discrepancies between NIL collectives and the amount of money they're raising. Iowa, they're probably in the $1 million to $2 million range, exclusive of Caitlin Clark, and then you've got somebody like Ohio State. They're at $13 million. The dollars, it's you literally can buy your own team now, and it'll show in the the balance or imbalance on the football field and basketball as well.
Yeah, now do the University of Miami. What do they got? 100 million?
Exactly.
It's funny, right? Because again, it's the have and have-nots in that game, right? And I went to school when you did, right? In about the same time, and I do recall, winners find a way. So I recall people getting the $1 lease on the car and all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah,
it was kind of going on. I was not lucky to be one of those guys either, by the way. I was the baseball team over there.
Yeah.
So it's a unique perspective of change, and quite frankly, Eric, I'm in a different space. I'm in a high school educational space, and small college of, hey, can I make money at this NIL thing? And I do think there's a lot of ways that obviously you can be an entrepreneur and make money. Your space is very different. There's a lot of positioning for dollars that are being spent, for allocating funds. And man, I mean, I don't know how many times you've heard it, Rob, but we've heard all these coaches go to these pressers and be like, hey, listen, I could be a lot better coach if we had 10 million in our collective.
Yeah.
like, wow, maybe you should just work on being a better coach. Like, and by the way, I don't know, Eric, about how many of those coaches are flipping into like, oh, by the way, I'm giving 25% of my $10 million salary away into.
Well, they're not allowed to. They're not allowed. Yeah. So
there's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the problem.
I've heard that argument, right? We had someone else argue that, Rob, like, hey, well, if these guys they put their money where their mouth is. Listen, if you're buying players, that actually kind of goes across a line. That's not gray. In fact, that's actually a stern, bold line, and you're crossing something illegal.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if the coaches were really smart, they renegotiate their agreements, take less, and then have the school figure out a way to reallocate those funds to the collective or back to a booster, and then the booster funnels it back into the NIL collective, and the dollars can find a way there. They really wanted to, but you were talking about the other student athletes and how they can get educated on this. Part of my transition into this opportunity was my business partner and I had created a company called Micro Sponsor Me and NIL Media, which was basically NIL for the other 98% of student athletes. So we saw automatically that you have the Power 5 conferences and the major sports that are the ones. Those are the student athletes that are getting dollars. They're getting $5,000 to $10 million a month or a year as part of the whole process. And there really is an opportunity for all the other student athletes out there to make some dollars. And even if it's $50 or $200 a month, that makes a difference if you're a D3 student athlete. Because my daughter plays lacrosse in college at a D3 school, and her ability to find some dollars is limited. So we said, all right, let's see how we can create a tool that allows student athletes to take advantage of something like that. And then part of what we do is we'll find brands, say, all right, now we can find, you need 1,000 student athletes to support this particular promotion. Send us some dollars. We'll allocate it to them. And then via social media, they can, basically ramp up the following, the virality of that particular promotion.
And you get it. So you've got the pool of athletes, and then the sponsors tap into that.
Yeah, that's what we're in the process of creating and putting together, because I've just partnered with a sports marketing company out in New Jersey, and they have access to 80 plus sponsors. So we're going to utilize. I have one way to get in the door for the collectives themselves, and then they have another. These collectives are looking for turnkey opportunities to generate revenue, where they basically can flip a switch and the dollars can come in, and then it can be allocated to the entire program, not just football, basketball, et cetera. It can be spread out, and they can spread the wealth, so to speak. But it's about $20 as they can get in as easily as possible for the lowest ROI, which is pretty much how any business is going to be run.
Specific to that collective, like it wouldn't be like where they're sponsoring, it's being spread out amongst a bunch of different college collectives, or?
No, actually, it could spread it out. I mean, it's very easy then for us to say we can go to, Iowa and Rutgers and St. John's and wherever, UConn, say, all right, we want, 15 student athletes from, any of these particular sports, male or female. And we'll send them, first 15 that sign up, they're in. We'll let them decide who gets the dollars. And we're just presenting it to them as an opportunity to get revenue to kids that need it from that standpoint.
I like that idea. I see a lot of big brands now. You're seeing them go across lines of sport, gender, all sorts of different things. Certainly we're seeing at State Farm, obviously signing Caitlin Clark and signing some of these names. And obviously the NFL guys have had tons of good success with State Farm. It's been a lot of fun to watch these brands grow, and now they're coming to this level of meeting the college athletes where they are and seeing that popularity. And wow, I mean, Caitlin Clark effect on NIL, like wow, this is a whole new level of just persona, which of course ramped up over the weekend where we had a $5 million offer for her to play in the men's league with I think it's what
Ice Cube or Ice T.
Ice Cubes on 3 years. Is that what it's called? On 3? Yeah. So which by the way, that was a $5 million endorsement for me to ever hear of that league, by the way. So didn't know that existed. And so hey, shout out to you, Ice Cube. My bad. I didn't know it was going. But I think you've got people that are absolutely proponents, and Ice Cube is a fan. He's a basketball fan, grew up playing, like he loves it. He wants to be a part of it. He's in the game, he's in the mix. And man, what a great way to shine a light on, good players are coming from anywhere. And I probably heard a month ago the whole, hey, is Caitlin a better shooter than our man over at Golden State with the Warriors, right? So is she as good as like the best in the NBA? And it's like, you can make a case. The percentages don't lie, and I'm telling you, she's not afraid to step back on it. That's for sure. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays, but fun times to see this thing really opening up and opportunities. And Eric, I would say I'm gonna argue a little bit against the wild west. I mean, I think there's a real opportunity for kids all over the place, but these opportunities have been for people in modeling and acting and all sorts of things for a long time. And because they're good at sports, all of a sudden they become an amateur because they can use their name, image, likeness. Obviously, Ed O'Bannon set this thing off in the first place, going, hey, you sold millions of dollars of video games because I was your best player, and I want some money, right? And Tony Hawk proved that the value of video games is really high. Okay, it's really, really high. And so I love that Ed stepped out and said, hey, I'd like a part of that. And it's changed the game forever, which I think is really important. But in the same breath, there's still some boundaries. There's still some boundaries that are supposed to be had here. And in theory, this isn't just hey, I can get anything. You can't endorse alcohol, you can't endorse tobacco, pornography, the things that we should clean up and stay away from. There are still some boundaries there, and they've also shut down some deals of, hey, we'll give you $3 million if you'll just show your candy bar on the big screen. Like, that doesn't seem like a like price, So they have shut some things, but I think it may get harder given some of the new legal that's brought upon NCAA. Eric, what do you think?
Well, I think there's going to be we're talking about reorganization of the conferences. I think this will go hand in hand with that as well too. And, I think there at some point it's going to be, a new organization that handles the top 60 or 72 teams in football, probably only, or football and basketball. And they'll then set the rules and parameters a little bit tighter than what we're currently dealing with. The athletes will sign agreements and they'll be bound to them. I think the Dartmouth kids thing where they can collectively bargain now is really going to talk about unknown consequences to an outcome that could really have a lot of changes as well too. And I think too that those NIL collections themselves are going to get rolled into the booster clubs so that they're not competing for dollars as well too, and they'll be able to utilize resources together. So I think you're right to a degree. The market's going to realign and continue to realign, and as long as people see results going one way or the other.
Maybe IQ wants to take his league right up into the top 50 basketball teams at the NCAA. Maybe just grab the best 500 players for that matter. Grab the 50 and the 10, and that may be Caitlin Clark. That may be some of the women. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's gonna have to figure that out. He's a lot smarter guy than I am. So, Rob, can you shed a little light for those that don't know on the Dartmouth collective bargaining? They got into the Ivy League and the NCAA, and I think their university to address some of their options as NIL and players. You know, that's
several weeks ago. It was the basketball team, and it was like 12 guys, and I think not everyone voted, but I think it was like maybe 10-2 or 11-1. And basically decided that they were going to want to do their own thing. And so they're kind of fighting against the system, which just opens up the eyes of both, I guess, the NCAA, the legal system, the school itself is like, what these guys want to do. But it's almost like they want to, I guess, basically become employees and get paid. And we've had that conversation as well. It's like, okay, well, all of a sudden what happens is you start getting paid. And how does that throw everything off? I mean, that's just another whole, spiraling thing that could be happening.
Yeah, at a private school that might happen. At a public institution, that may be able to pass on the Ivy League, where you have. I don't know if they're all private in the Ivy League, but I believe they are.
I think they are.
And so I think that may pass in that conference. But man, like the Big Ten, I think that's primarily public. So those are state employees all of a sudden. I don't know how that's going to float out. Erica, you got any thoughts on that?
I don't. I think they have the ability now to get to get resources out and get paid like an employee of the university. So I think that's going to be something that'll change a lot of stuff right away. So it's a good question. I don't know where that one's going to go, truthfully, but I think it's going to have some effect.
For me, I can tell you, careful what you wish for. I would never want that. Like, I looked at because I spent a long time in Major League Baseball, I was always like, hey, man, I'd like to sign the contract. And I never signed this contract, by the way, but the 5-year, $50 million under Trent LLC. And I can determine that I need Eric on my payroll and I need Rob on my payroll. And I can determine how I'd like to be taxed on that $50 million over the next 5 years, as opposed to W-2 employee and jumping into this game as an employee. And man, there's a lot of taxation on that front side. So that's always alarming, Rob. And I mean, if I could go back and have my druthers, so if I was advising a college athlete today, I would be like, oh, no. You keep this NIL in your LLC and you keep that into a business structure, because I think that structure is going to play a lot better for taxation, for freedom, for legally to safeguard yourself, to provide a barrier of the challenge between any kind of legal issue or any kind of proprietary issue going on with the business and then going on with a brand. So I think there's a lot of value in having that buffer for not being employed. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So, hey, well, let's kind of segue into one of our stories, because we start
Sure.
talking about like legal things going on. So let me pull this up here for us.
Yeah. This story blew me away.
Scandal here, and I'll kind of read the headlines and have Trent dig into it. So the death of college sports will be fast and furious, a scandal that could kill the NCAA. So not showing up on our screen here, but basically,
Yeah, there it is. Yep, got it.
Yeah, we got it there. So it's all, I started kind of reading this a little bit, and it was almost the whole Catch Me If I Can movie. of,
Yeah.
of where there's a guy here, and like I said, you get more into Trent, but he was basically, got in trouble, and he did a little bargaining that he would go undercover and try to get into some of the things that are going on with athletes getting paid, so that they ultimately would go to agencies when they went pro, like the sports agencies, and what they were doing, working with coaches and all that. Kind of a crazy story. What you want to kind of expound on that a little bit, Trent?
Yeah, absolutely bonkers. I was forwarded this story from a former coach of mine saying, "Hey, you probably heard about this already, but check it out." And I had not heard about this. This is a wealth manager who had been advising people in pro sports and college sports that were creating a lot of value for themselves at the collegiate level. And obviously at the NIL level now is becoming, hey, why would I invest my money, especially if you're a couple $100,000 or more? What a great way to limit taxation by investing that money into other verticals and vehicles that you could use. So this wealth management apparently was not operating above board, and he commingled funds. And one of the three-letter organizations caught wind of his action, and they put a kibosh and arrested him for misappropriating funds of his clients. And he did the catch me if you can. Like, he's a really smart guy. Figured out how to, get all these athletes. And yeah, he's got a bunch of high end client lists. And he said, "Well, I don't really like the idea of 20 years in prison. So how about I work for you guys, and I will disclose a bunch of what's happening behind the scenes in college sports." And I think there's a lot to read here. There's a lot of different nuances of it all. But probably the biggest one that really stuck out to me was the fact that his offer was to major college coaches. And he was offering these top collegiate coaches, I think primarily in basketball, that if they were to uh, send over some wealth management clients his way, these athletes who are on their way to the NBA draft are already making funds, he would give them a kicker. And so there was a bribe involved in the opportunity. And so what threw me was when the article came to, they said, "Hey, how many of these coaches actually took your bribe?" Because now we got a challenge of ethics, right? And so his staggering response was 100% took the bribe. And I was like flabbergasted, thinking, like, hey, my kid's going away to this person, give me this great coach, and do the right thing for my young man or my daughter, and I'm going to be so excited. And listen, I'm not going after anybody's character here, but it was staggering that this is obviously quite prevalent, Rob. I mean, and it's yeah, you kind of hear it, you kind of know maybe something's going on. If you've been around AAU youth basketball, you know the scouting and recruiting is fast and furious, and probably gets for many years into a gray line. I don't think that's a straight line above board and beyond. So um, there's been challenges in that environment, and so this just probably solidified that the challenges don't stop there. Is that fair, Rob?
Yeah, and I mean, they haven't like come out with any of the coaches' names, right? Because that would really turn into,
No.
I'm sure, a major scandal.
No. Yeah, that has not happened yet. Yeah, I fear it's, like, this is Rolling Stone broke this story. I mean, you see the date. This is like on the doorstep
now.
of March
Yeah.
Madness. Yeah, like this is what, 2 weeks ago. So maybe even a week ago. And so this story broke, and yeah, I think in relation, we've seen some of these crippling national stories on sexual scandals and this and that. And obviously this is an ethics issue, and maybe I don't know about illegal and all those categories. You probably have to talk to a lawyer for that, but it is categorically for something so passionate in our world. it is definitely alarming that this hot list could come out, and how many coaches and the who's who of that list could be absolutely terrifying to an NCAA, to a university, and everything else. So it's definitely alarming, Rob. That's for sure. Eric,
Yeah.
did you see this story, and are you aware of it?
I did not see the story, and that surprises me as well, given its potential impact on sports in general. But you know, I used to practice law. I'm not practicing now. I'm a recovering attorney, but my recovering attorney hat says, the coaches themselves are bound by whatever contractual agreements they have with the universities. So if there's a violation there, that's the ethical side of it, and that'll control a lot of that aspect of it. Now, if they're taking advantage of their position and routing student athletes to specific agents and getting a kickback on that, there's some I wouldn't say criminal say liability, but there's definitely some civil liability across the board that could do it. But at the end of the day, the fact that nothing's happened, that this hasn't become a big name, the names aren't out there. I get the feeling that it might, there might be some backroom shenanigans going on that'll ultimately say, all right, well, we'll make a few changes to what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and figure out how to enforce it going forward. So I think that'll probably play a bigger role in the whole process than that, because if it's been March 24th, it's been a week plus. That should hit a lot harder if there was something more behind it, or maybe it's just they're waiting for one more shoe to drop, so to speak.
So it's a warning shot across the bow.
Yeah, it could be. Just get your straight, and otherwise we're coming after you.
Yeah, I tell you, with a major publication like Rolling Stone, right? That's obviously a more of a editorial piece than big daily news. So it's an interesting position. Excuse me. And but man, I think as you described that, right, when you put your legal hat on, man, that almost sounds like I'm doing this for monetary gain. That sounds a light level of trafficking, right? Like I'm making introductions to people for financial benefit. And I think that's also, by the way, a gray line. For all of us in sales, commissioned, who've done. I pay a lot of people referral fees to my services, right? So I don't know where referral fees and services hit to. You've crossed a financial line, and now this is an illegal activity. So
part of it comes down to just disclosure, and if the student athletes themselves know about it and sign off and say, yes, I'm okay with this relationship, then there's not as much of a problem. But again, they have to be educated enough to be able to make a determination whether or not they're agreeing to something that they actually fully understand as well too. So that plays.
I think the challenge in this is how long has this been going on, right? Because if this is pre-NIL, I don't think anyone signed anything going, hey, I'm taking my $1.5 million and I'm going to invest it in this stuff. And everyone's like going, hey, 20-year-old kid, where'd you get $1.5 million?
Yeah, exactly.
With the wealth manager, like, oh, well, listen, I grew up on the south side of Chicago and I ran a lemonade stand.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just really paid off down there because it has nothing to do with my ability to play basketball. So, I think this is. I'll tackle a little greater subject in this, Eric, and I'd love to have your opinion on this. The challenge of this to me is our leaders have made this okay. We have politicians that are insider trading all over the place. They got a $200,000 job and somehow end up worth $70 million. Creating policy that's going to benefit certain companies, and immediately that's weird how I owned all the stock of those companies, right? Which apparently is not illegal, but we're setting precedents of the ethics. And now I think people are just following suit of bad leadership and going, hey, everybody else is doing this. Our leaders are doing this and modeling this behavior. When did we cross the line, Eric? I mean, I'm frustrated to see this for the youth of America on why the dollar's leading our decisions.
Well, because the dollar's always leading the decisions. If you ever want to find a scandal, just follow the money, and that'll get you to wherever you need to go for 90% of the time. You talk about motivation as a part of it. I think obviously institutional control plays a factor. Just having good people in the right positions plays a factor. I mean, we can have a top-down discussion to say how bad or good certain things are in certain sides of it, but it really comes down to, all right, trying to level everybody wants to have some level of a level playing field, and that's not always as easily attained as we would want to. And then there's a rush to the bottom, and then everybody's playing the different lines across it, so it makes it difficult to have a quote unquote a good positive outcome of the whole process. So that's one for my contracts law class, and a couple other law classes that I had. We could discuss it for another 2, 3, 4 days at least.
Hey, Rob, I mean, I think one of the things that a lot of people thought, and maybe this will happen, is that with the money and with the discrepancies in universities being able to raise more or less. I mean, we can also talk endowment funds, by the way, too. Like, maybe get a kicker off that, because Harvard all of a sudden have the best athletic program in the world.
Yeah, exactly. They should be dominating.
Yeah, right. So we can talk about a couple different things in this space, but Rob, I mean, it feels like parity's never been better in college sports. Like, it's not like one team wins it every year. I could make an argument that Georgia probably should have been there again this year.
Yeah.
But it's there's some fresh perspective. We're seeing some teams compete. Obviously, some of the best coaching and some of the best recruiting is going on at certain schools, and they're reloading pretty regularly. I mean, obviously, Coach Saban and a couple programs have built that out very well to continue to compete. But you and I both know, Eric, they're doing a ton of work, right? I mean, this isn't just handed, right?
No,
but, man, Rob, I'm happy with the parity. What do you see?
And it is good. I like to see the parity in different teams. I mean, here in my own backyard down in Boca Raton, Florida, you had the Cinderella story last year of FAU, and here they go. They drive to the Final Four, do a phenomenal job. Everybody's all excited about it. Their coach, Dusty May, comes back for another year. All the players come back. Can't wait for another great season. They get eliminated in the first round, and all of a sudden it's like, killed a lot of brackets, I'm sure. And then all of a sudden, next thing we know, Dusty May is now the new coach at Michigan. So it's happening on. It's almost like the portal. You see all these athletes transfer. It's like the coach's portal, so to speak. Where like, okay, well, let's move to the next program. It's gonna, I'm sure, pay him a lot more money than he was getting at FAU, and more exposure, being at Michigan and being in a big school. But that's I guess the parity is there, but still, like, if you feel bad a little bit for FAU, they kind of got to start all over again, and bring in new coaches and probably a whole new team, because some of the players are going to follow him to Michigan or leave. So that's the other side of looking at this whole parity thing as well.
Eric, I want you to speak to this a little bit too, because I think, again, I'm going to get back on my soapbox and say, listen, the coaches set up this whole. They were the ones who set up the whole portal. They were jumping all over the place for another $8 million, and parents are just trying to get like, hey, I thought my kid was going to go play for this guy or this woman for 3-4 years, and now they jump at any moment. So leadership set that example again, and now the young people have followed. Eric, can you speak to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely reap what you sow as a part of that. And when they open up those the doors, the floodgates, kids are going to take advantage of it. But when, you have on one side of the argument where, right, it's just not working out for me here, I'm going to go and play someplace else and hopefully have a better outcome, versus, all right, if this kid had just stayed for another 2 years, they would have had a fantastic outcome with that school as well, too. And maybe would have learned a little bit more about perseverance, et cetera. So I can see both sides of the table, but the ability to move around and you're a free agent here. You're not signed to a contract. College scholarships in the past were always 1 year, renewable by the coach and by the school, and they decided, right, well, it's time for you to move on. Well, it's time for you to move on, and they'll pull your scholarship and out the door you go. So I think it's tough for guys like Saban and some of the other coaches that have decided to move on. Is they're losing control, and they have to find out where can how can I maintain what I'm currently doing under the current circumstances, and I'm 68 years old. Do I really want to go through this anymore? And I heard something Saban said he and his wife they would have all the recruits come out, and the questions weren't asking like, what are my classes, et cetera. It's like, all right, how much can you pay me to come here? And that was definitely off-putting for them, given that they really want to create a family atmosphere as a part of this whole process, which really, that is so much about athletics that I think you and I probably have benefited. I talk to all my Clemson guys. I probably have 70, 80 of them that I can call up at any time and say, all right. And then you show up at events and like, it's just like old times. And there's a real benefit for that.
Yeah, my new book, Leading Winning Teams, is all about what we learned as athletics and what we had from these leaders who stayed with us and helped us persevere and helped us stay the course. And now how all those skills are transferring, like for Eric Mader, into these multiple successful companies that you're helping and helping other people succeed and give back. And I think this is what people have missed about sport. This is a little dichotomy of life. And man, if we lose that, there's going to be something really lost. It's kind of like the body losing the heart. You still got a body, but I'm a little concerned, right?
Exactly. Well, but then I always look at it the other way too. It's just the hat I wears, but I can see the other side too, because change isn't always bad. Change, progression, things get better, people adapt, and we get parity. We had 10 teams that probably could have won the NCAA tournament this year. They were competitive enough to do it. Years past, you say, all right, 3 or 4, definitely those are the cream of the crop, and everybody else is out by the Sweet 16, and you might get a FAU upset here and there. Look at all the numbers, the 16s and ones that have gone down just from the last probably 10 years, as there has been a level of parity and evening it out. So, man, it's I think it's just fun to watch. I'm entertained across the board, and that's really what college athletics is kind of about. Anyhow, it's here to entertain us, and if we can figure out ways to help these kids, do better and get better, after they graduate, that's kind of the good answer from me as well.
Eric, where can they find you real quick, Eric, before we get Rob to wrap it up?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Eric Mader. And I think I'm the first one, so I'm not a problem there. And SodalisSolutions.com as well is our website. So I'd love to talk to anybody. If anybody has questions, I'm there to see what I can do to help and answer.
So they all know this is old school here.
Yes, exactly. So it's SodalisSolutions. So S is on the corner, double S is in the middle. .com.
Solutions. Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, definitely.
I was headed to some Texas website. I'll be honest. So Dallas, what?
Yes.
Jerry Jones said who?
You got to get copyright or trademark infringement there from him.
On that one. So this has been another great show, and we encourage people to reach out. NIL for you. You can find us on sportspreneur.com. Our friends over there, we're on their platform with a bunch of other podcasts as well, and across all the podcast networks. But this is great. Every week we want to hit on different topics of things going on in NIL, a lot of the education side. That's where our buddy Trent comes in with Trent's tips, which we're going to have him close the show with Trent's tips. But definitely check it out. And Eric, man, it's been great. We appreciate you. So Trent, why don't you close it out today with one Trent's tip?
Yeah. Hey, tip of the day is, reach out to experts like Eric Mader. Reach out to the people that are around you that will help guide you. Find someone who's in the space, doing it well, and they're all over. You don't have to look far. They are on the internet. They are there. They're on these shows. And every show you see somebody on a podcast, they give their information. Reach out. They can't wait to hear from
you again for another great edition of.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate the time. That was awesome.
Yeah, our pleasure.